and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this really important session, Equity, Diversity and Belonging in Practice, the SLT Disability Survey. Delighted that you're all able to join us this afternoon. I'm Steve Jameson, and I'm the Chief Executive of the Royal College of Speech and Language Therapists, and it's truly my honour and my privilege to chair this afternoon's session. This is a topic that's not only close to my heart, but fundamentally to who we are as a profession and as a community. Next slide, please. Equity, diversity, and belonging are not abstract concepts for us. They shape the experiences of our colleagues, our services, and ultimately the people that we support. And today is a really great opportunity for us to listen and to learn and to reflect. And in this session, we will deepen our understanding of the Royal College of Speech and Language Therapists' vision and strategy for equity, diversity, and belonging. We'll also explore the concrete steps we are taking to turn this strategy into meaningful action. And we will engage with the findings of the RCSLT Disability Survey Report, SLTs on the tightrope, learning from the experiences of disabled SLTs in the workplace, and consider its recommendations. Next slide. So why does EDB matter? Well, let me start with this. Our vision is really, really simple, but it's also very profound. It's a profession where every single person feels safe, feels valued, and feels able to thrive. Not some of us, not most of us, but all of us. And yet, sadly, we know that that isn't the reality today. Across our profession, colleagues still experience discrimination because of who they are, because of their gender identity, because of the color of their skin, because they're disabled or neurodivergent, because they're LGBTQIA+, because of their religion, or because of the circumstances that they were born into. These are people who are talented, skilled, and dedicated, and yet they still face barriers that have nothing to do with their competence. They face them because of bias, assumptions, and ignorance. And that should trouble every single one of us. We are a caring profession. We exist to give voice to those who are unheard. So we cannot ignore the voices inside our own profession telling us that they do not feel that they belong. That is why our EDB strategy is not just a document, but it's a commitment. It's a commitment to challenge inequality wherever we see it. It's a commitment to champion belonging. It's a commitment to make sure that every SLT can bring their whole, authentic self to their work. Because the communities we serve are beautifully diverse, and our profession must reflect that diversity if we are truly to serve them. Next slide, please. But before I go any further, I want to make one thing absolutely clear. There's an assumption out there, often influenced by American discourse, that EDB is about quotas or affirmative action or positive discrimination. But let me say this really plainly as the Chief Executive of the RCSLT. That is not the UK approach, and it's certainly not RCSLT's approach. We're not asking for special treatment for anyone. We are asking for fairness. What EDB is about is acknowledging every real truth. People in our profession, brilliant people, are still being held back or harmed simply for who they are. Whether they're discriminated against because of their gender identity, because they are people of color or members of a specific ethnic or linguistic group, members of the LGBTQIA+, disabled or neurodivergent colleagues, people of faith, and those from lower income backgrounds. We are saying enough is enough. EDB is about removing barriers, not creating them. It's about ensuring that who you are is never a reason you're excluded, underestimated, or made to feel safe. It's about creating a culture where everyone belongs and everyone is treated equitably, not equally in theory, but fairly in practice. And it's about building the profession that we want to see, one that truly reflects the diversity of the society that we serve, one that's ready to meet the needs of every community, and one where discrimination is something we look back on, not something that we still tolerate. A profession where every single one of us can stand tall as our authentic selves and know that we do belong. That is the future we're all building, and it is a future that we need to build together. So now, without any further ado, I'd like to introduce my colleague Nige, who will give you a whistle-stop tour of our EDB strategy and vision. And Nige will then be followed by our colleagues presenting on the RCSLT Disability Survey report, and hopefully we will have times for short Q&A after that. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much, Steve. Excuse me. Hello and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Naj Hussain. I'm a policy advisor at the RCSLT, and the current EDB lead. As Steve said, I'm going to give you a quick whistle-stop tour of our EDB vision and strategy before handing over to our colleagues who will be presenting on the disability survey report. Next slide, please. So to begin with, our vision, Diverse Voices, United Purpose, sets out an ambition and unifying direction for the profession. It expresses the kind of professional community we want to be, one where every practitioner feels that their voice is heard, their identity is respected, and their contribution is valued. It also reflects our commitment to the people we serve, ensuring that the speech and language therapy profession continues to evolve as a fair, inclusive, and culturally responsive profession. Our purpose connects directly to this. Next slide, please. So it's about bringing the whole profession together on equity, diversity, and belonging, and making sure these principles are not optional or occasional, but embedded in everyday values, practices, and leadership of the RCT and the wider SLT community. This vision and purpose guide the strategy, the action plan, and the long-term journey we're now undertaking together. Next slide, please. So one of the most important aspects of this work is how it was developed. So we made a deliberate commitment that this strategy would not be written about people or written with people, especially those whose experiences and voices have historically been underrepresented in our profession. We worked closely with the SLT EDB groups on the slide from the very beginning. This included one-to-one conversations with each group to understand their priorities and challenges, a large in-person consultation event and workshop where people could speak openly about what meaningful change looks like, and multiple rounds of follow-up refinement sessions. Beyond this, we opened the process to staff and members across the RCT through additional consultation opportunities. This allowed us to test ideas, gather feedback, and ensure that what we produced reflected both lived experience and the practical realities of the profession. The outcome is a strategy that is deeply informed, evidence-led, lived experience-led, and most importantly, realistic, achievable, and grounded in the needs of our community. Next slide, please. So the 5 priority areas here were the core themes that emerged consistently from our engagement with the EDB groups, members, as well as staff. They captured the breadth of work needed to create an equitable and inclusive professional environment. Championing diversity and fostering belonging is about creating spaces where people feel safe, valued, and able to contribute fully. Equitable focus on all diversity groups and intersectional approach emphasizes that different identities and experiences overlap and interact, and that equity requires us to consider that complexity. Affirming diverse perspectives commits us to elevating lived experiences and ensuring that decision-making is informed by those with direct insight and diverse cultural perspectives. Advocating change recognizes RCST's responsibility to influence systems, structures, and services beyond our own organization. And finally, an accountable and transparent professional body and employee ensures that we hold ourselves responsible for progress and that we measure our impact, and we are open and honest about what is working and what still needs to change. These priorities are not separate. They work together to guide our actions and shape the future of the profession. Next slide, please. So with the strategy in place, we've translated these priorities into a clear and structured action plan. The action plan outlines what we will do, who is responsible for each action, and the timeframes in which we expect progress to be made. It includes measurable indicators so we can track progress effectively and ensure that these actions lead to real, meaningful change rather than symbolic, wishy-washy commitments. There are built-in review points and governance oversight from relevant committees, including the board. And moving forward, my hope is with the EDB groups themselves, ensuring accountability is maintained across the organisation and profession. Importantly, the action plan is a living document. Next slide, please. So it will evolve over time as we learn more, as the context change, and as members and communities continue to share their experiences and perspectives. This approach helps ensure that our work remains relevant, responsive, and sustainable. Next slide, please. So as I close my section, on behalf of the RCSLT, I want to extend our heartfelt thanks to these SLT groups, the SLT The Colour, the Anti-Racism Reference Group, the LGBTQIA+ Working Group, the Disability Working Group, the Neurodiversity Working Group, the Jewish Representatives Group, and the Men in SLT Group, as well as the many, many members who were engaged in this work. Each has shared their expertise, the lived experience, and the time with great honesty and generosity, and their contribution has shaped this work in profound ways, and we are so very grateful. What we've shared today is a whistle-stop overview of a much wider and deeper program of work. The full vision, strategy, and action plan include a significant number of actions, commitments, and mechanisms for monitoring progress, and we will be creating more opportunities for members to explore this in detail. Looking forward, we will provide further spaces for learning, participation, feedback, and collaboration, because EDB work is not something done by a small group. It cannot be done in isolation. It cannot be done in silence. It is something we all share responsibility for. You can view the full EDB vision, strategy and action plan at the link in the slide. Our hope is that together, through Diverse Voices Unite Purpose, we are building a profession where equity, belonging, and justice are at the heart of everything we do. Thank you very much. Now handing over to my colleague, Mel, for the Disability Survey Report.
Thank you. We're going to hand over to Joe to kick us off on the presentation on disability.
Thanks so much for the that background. So hello everybody, I'm Jo Sandyford, SLT and Senior Lecturer at Leeds Beckett University and a member of the RCSLT Disability Working Group. It's a pleasure and a privilege to commence this presentation on behalf of the Disability Working Group, which consists of disabled SLTs, disabled SLT students, as well as non-disabled SLT allies. And together with my colleagues who you can see on this slide, we are sharing the report entitled SLTs on the Tightrope, Learning from the Experiences of Disabled SLTs in the Workplace, which was published in April of this year. Next slide, please. So before we start, I want to acknowledge the co-production approach to this work between the Disability Working Group and RCSLT colleagues. I also want to draw your attention to the terminology that's used throughout this presentation. So the terms used to refer to disability and disabled people reflect identity first and person first preferences and include perspectives on disability and difference. The principle that I try to use in my own practice as an SLT is to inquire as to how any individual would refer to themselves and how they would prefer others to refer to them, to avoid assumption and to respect personal preferences. So to reflect the different ways that people may choose to be represented, we've decided to use a variety of terms interchangeably throughout this presentation. Next slide, please. So the background to the report is that there has been increasing recognition over the last decade or so of the lack of diversity in our profession. And researchers started to shed light on the experiences of marginalised or underrepresented groups in terms of linguistic and cultural diversity, race and gender. But there has really been limited research into disability within the SLT workforce. HCPC data shows that 7.5% of practicing SLTs have a disability, and the Disability Working Group felt that evidence was needed to consider the challenges that disabled SLTs face, the good practices that could be shared, and ways to move the profession forward in terms of inclusion and advocacy. So the group set about collecting some data to enable in-depth understanding of the experiences of the disabled SLT community. Next slide, please. The data collection took the form of a national online survey, and the survey was designed by the Disabled SLT Working Group. It was an iterative process which evolved through members of the group making suggestions, consulting on and reviewing drafts until a final version of the survey was agreed. And the survey comprised the 4 sections that you can see on the slide. So demographic information using the Higher Education Statistics Agency categories, experiences of SLTs who had disclosed a disability, experiences of SLT students on placement, and experiences of SLTs with and without disabilities on managing, working and studying with a disabled colleague. The survey was shared via social media and RCSLT peer networks and was open from the end of April until the end of May 2023. Next slide, please. The participation rate was unexpected and unprecedented, really. So 407 SLTs started the survey, with 357 consenting and completing it. And of those, 71% disclosed having a disability. 29% reported no disability, but of the 254 respondents with a disability, 32 were disabled SLT students. So looking at the profile of respondents in the pie chart, respondents who disclosed a disability shared having a range of conditions and differences. The highest group, 26%, indicated that they have a specific learning disability, such as dyslexia, dyspraxia, or ADHD. And other groups shared profiles including mental health difficulties, physical impairments, long-standing conditions, and social communication differences. And the volume of responses was so high that the group decided that the analysis and exploration of the data warranted the skills of an experienced researcher. So Melanie took up this role and will share the analysis and findings with you next. So over to Mel.
Thank you so much, Joe. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. So my name is Mel, and I'm a consultant for the WHO Disability Program. And I'm now going to talk you through some of the data analysis that we did and some of the key findings that we find from this very, very big data set. So our research question was broad and exploratory. We asked, what are the experiences of disabled members of the SLT workforce in the UK? To answer this, we used a mixed method approach, so descriptive statistics to capture patterns in the quantitative data that was collected, but also reflexive thematic analysis following Brown and Clark's framework to explore the more in-depth qualitative data that we had. Importantly, this study was grounded in a transformative research paradigm. This means that we followed ethical principles at every stage of the research process to amplify voices, value lived experiences, and address power inequities. Disabled SLTs were then not passive participants that just provided data, but we collaborated and everyone was there to shape the research process. And for more information, I invite you to check Merton's work. She's really been a pioneer in this space. So on the next slide, you will see how we structured the findings. We organized our findings using an ecological framework, which allowed us to better understand experiences at 3 interconnected levels. Firstly, the individual level, then the collective level, and the systemic level. This approach really helped us understand not only the intra and interpersonal experiences, but also how the workplace culture, environmental factors, and broader systemic factors influence disability inclusion for SLTs who work in the UK. So it really allows us to have this more holistic view. All right, let's dive in. In the next slide, you will see the findings at the individual level. 3 sub-themes really stood out at that level. Firstly, a balancing act. So SLTs recognized that their lived experiences were an asset, but also acknowledged the vulnerability that comes with it. For example, one participant said, "I want people to know that my experience as a disabled person adds to, enriches, and informs who I am as a therapist." But another participant also said, "I also am scared of being vulnerable, and I do not want my weaknesses to be used against me." And this really captures the duality of their experiences, carefully balancing the strength on one hand and the needs, hence the tightrope walker imagery that we have on the cover of the report. As a second sub-theme for the individual level, no two stories alike. So participants told us that there's often a lot of generalizations and stereotypes, but the story is very unique. It is shaped by their personal journey, how visible their difference is to others, or other considerations of intersectionality like gender or race that can really shape a very, very unique and different experience. So no two stories are the same, and we really should not make assumptions. And finally, this third sub-theme is around positionality. Many participants describe navigating their professional positionality in a different space and pace than their other colleagues without a disability, either being hyper visible or invisible, and often reporting slower career progression, so a very slow pace of navigating the profession. So that's it for the individual level. Now moving on to the collective level. And here I'm really going to focus on two groups of people that really shape immensely the experiences of disabled SLTs. These are the managers and the colleagues. So managers emerged as gatekeepers of meaningful support. Most participants reported feeling supported always or sometimes, but a few felt never supported. And as Steve mentioned in the opening of this session, we want everyone to feel supported, so a few is not good enough. When managers were supportive and respectful, experiences improved dramatically. For example, one respondent shared, "My manager is amazing at checking in with me for my mental health and ADHD needs, so that's really good. That's what we want to see." But there's also these other more difficult stories when managers dismiss the needs, then the impact could be devastating on the disabled SLTs, sometimes leading to people leaving the profession. For example, one participant said, "I felt so alone and outcast that I ended up leaving the organization." So that's it for managers. Now I have a few messages for colleagues, and I think it's an important one because I hope a lot of you in the room might be in this position. Colleagues play a very, very important role. They can really amplify this sense of inclusion or sense of exclusion. So they really act as amplifiers of disability inclusion. Supportive colleagues were described as approachable, respectful, and consistent in checking in and meeting the needs of their disabled colleagues. But we also heard some stories about negative behaviors, negative attitudes, or inappropriate comments that could really create a hostile environment for our colleagues with disabilities. For example, one participant recalled being called a cripple inventor, and that really affected their mental health and their willingness to go to the office. And then in the next slide, there's two other sub-themes under that collective umbrella that we have. I'm going to go through them very quickly. Not that they're not important, but for the sake of time. So firstly, peer support groups were described as very powerful sources of connection and growth. They helped individuals recognize challenges and share strategies and resources. And then there were also other actors like unions or disability champions, the RCSLT itself, or university disability services that played quite punctual roles, but also very important, especially when formal systems fail them. They could be a very good source of support and resources. All right, so with this, I'm wrapping up the collective level and we're moving to the final level, which is the systemic level. And it's a really important one because disability inclusion is not just about one person and the other persons who evolve around us, but it's also about the system and the environment in which we evolve in. There are 4 different influences that we identified. Firstly, policies and guidelines. So legal frameworks exist like the Equality Act or the Access to Work scheme, but the implementation was described as inconsistent and sometimes the awareness limited. So issues like ableism can also persist within those frameworks. Then we had issues around the work culture. So toxic performance culture was often described, marked by issues like presenteeism, working very long hours, expected to be working very long hours, or multitasking, were things that, although it affects all of us, but it can fundamentally have a disproportionate impact on the health and the well-being of our colleagues with disabilities. For example, participants describe being unable to go the extra mile because of physical or mental energy limits. On the next slide, you'll see the last 2 sub-themes for this level at the system level. And these are a very important one as well, the workplace environment. Factors in the physical environment, like if you have for example, disability parking, or if you have a lift rather than staircase, can really make a big impact to some colleagues with certain needs. But also sensory factors, things like the light, smells, or background noise can really have a profound impact on the well-being and the health of our colleagues with disabilities. And last but very much not least, attitudinal factors that really transpire throughout the work environment were things that really could impact the health and well-being of our colleagues. And if there's 2 data that we want you to remember, is the following. Firstly, 50% of participants with disabilities reported having experienced or encountered disability discrimination in the workplace. This number is down to 1/3 for students on their placements. And lastly, no, still on that slide. Thank you. The last one is around processes and services. So participants say that they navigated challenges at different stages of their career, from completing their degree at university to applying for a job or obtaining reasonable adjustments or raising a complaint. And in the report, we provide more details about what that means and how we can improve some of these services and processes based on the experiences of disabled SLTs. So I will stop here. These findings really revealed a very complex picture of individual resilience, but also collective responsibility and systemic barriers that we all have a role into challenging and making a safer and more inclusive environment for everyone. And I'll invite you to the report. But for now, I'll hand over to Zenaib, who is going to share with us some of her experience. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Zainab. I'm a speech and language therapist by background, and thank you, Mel, for sharing the huge, big findings of this report. So I thought I'd just reflect a little bit on the findings and my experience as a disabled woman who fits into 3 protected categories, being my ethnic background, my gender, and my religion. And the statements on the screen are the ones that, they really speak to me. So my lived experience isn't something that I leave at the door when I come to work. It is part of who I am as a clinician. and the way I move through the world navigating my disability, faith, culture, and everyday practice. It genuinely enriches how I connect with my patients and how I advocate and understand difference. The report gave me a sense of recognition and belonging, and it was really comforting to read as a disabled SLT. And whilst reading the report, I saw my own reality reflected back at me, highlighting that it's something that many of us can feel, the constant balancing act that Mel touched on. Wanting to assert our value while also hoping our needs will be recognised, and sometimes feeling that we might have to downplay or mask our disability to avoid stigma. When I show up as my whole self, Muslim, South Asian, SLT, wheelchair user, there's a real opportunity to bring authenticity to the room. But there's questions that always sit in the back of my mind, which are, will reasonable adjustments actually happen? And when we know that half of the disabled SLTs do experience discrimination, and a third of SLTs have had their reasonable adjustments refused or declined, it's quite worrying. But in my experience, it's been quite positive. I've had really supportive managers, which has made all the difference to allow me to feel confident to actually express what adjustments I need. And that makes all the difference. For me, this report also is a call to action invitation for colleagues and workplaces to move beyond accommodating differences to genuinely valuing it. And it's a reminder that our identities are not barriers to practice, but powerful assets. And because in the end, my disability, my ethnicity, and my faith, and my professional identity are not separate boxes. They inform and shape one another, and recognizing this isn't just important for me, but it's important for the overall profession and the people we serve. Thank you. I will hand over to Jodie.
Thanks, Zainab. What a powerful message that you've just given us there. I'm Jodie Simpson, and I'm co-founder of the Neurodivergent SLT Network. I'm also autistic. I have PTSD and ADHD, and I'm also disabled. So the report has highlighted a number of practical recommendations for supporting disabled SLTs and students. Firstly, knowing your rights and accessing support is absolutely vital. Take some time to learn about your legal rights and protections as outlined in the Equality Act. Schemes like access to work help towards the cost of accessibility equipment. For example, I've had read write software, AI note takers, ergonomic furniture like my sit-stand desk, which is brilliant, and I've also accessed mental health support through Access to Work. And in particular, specialist strategy coaching really helped me to use my strengths, to understand my strengths, and to use them to feel a sense of control and productivity at work, and essentially reducing my stress and the burnout. Asking your employer about disability policies that they have and seeing the resources that we've developed as disabled and neurodivergent SLTs on RCSLT's websites will also be helpful. Equity and diversity champions in your workplace can be powerful allies, and unions are great at advocating when problems arise, getting the support that you need to thrive. I can't underestimate enough the importance of peer support, like the work-based disability networks where you work, RCSLT's disability working group, and the Neurodivergent SLT network has over 400 members who tell us how much they value this safe space in providing connection, advocacy, and for a few, I've said that it's literally saved their life. That's a sobering reminder of the importance of the felt sense of belonging. Next page, please, Amit. So for colleagues, oh no, it isn't next page, is it? It's the other side of that. For colleagues and allies, creating a supportive and non-judgmental environment really matters. Accepting differences and celebrating strengths. Allies are often anxious about respecting boundaries, so just avoid the topic altogether. Please don't. Be proactive, be curious and ask questions, but Remember to avoid harmful assumptions. Initiate conversations about how you can help and make sure that you still follow that through. Now, I bring, for example, a box of fidgets and coloured pens and paper to every meeting that I go to, whether I'm leading it or not. And I encourage people just to try them. It's a way of normalising difference and opening a door for supportive conversations about difference. Now to the next slide. So managers, you play an absolutely key role in promoting a culture of inclusivity by setting very clear expectations for your teams and being proactive in initiating conversations about workload, productivity and belonging, not just with disabled staff, but with all of your staff. Appropriate support is likely to be an ongoing journey, not just one-off fixes. And this may look very different for everyone. So, for example, I needed quite regular check-ins when my mental health wasn't so good. So my team set up a 15-minute daily hub on Teams where everybody could say how they were feeling about the day ahead and about whether they needed any support. And it created an environment of accountability and mutual support because that was the culture. Our team meetings had regular slot for sharing anything that we got stuck on or were avoiding, with an expectation that we would support each other rather than being judgmental. For me, it was just a bit of body doubling. That was all I needed quite often. Somebody just to sit with me and say, right, you do that while I do this. Disability training for your team is a really great way for raising awareness, especially when that training has been written and delivered by disabled employees. Managers need to think about accountability mechanisms when issues arise, like supporting with the extra admin that a disabled person might need to do to even access the support they need, chasing up equipment orders. Lots of people are telling us that they've waited over a year for access to work assessment and then another year waiting for their employer to order the equipment that they need. That's 2 years without any support. So finally, policymakers, find ways to fast track these reasonable adjustments. 2 years is too long. Strengthen support processes and include disability as part of your budgets. For RCSLT, we ask you to keep the disability guidelines updated and raise awareness of the resources as we create them and continue supporting the working groups. So in closing, inclusion isn't just a policy, just like Naj said earlier on. It's not a policy, it's a practice. It's about creating spaces where everyone can thrive. And we hope that some of these recommendations have sparked some ideas for you to take back to your teams. I'm going to pass over to Amy now for our conclusion.
Hi, I'm Amy, and I'm going to take us through the conclusions and resources. So the survey shed light on experiences of SLTs, disabled SLTs that had not been exposed before. It showed unexpected results and shared experiences in the workplace and the impact among SLTs across the country. The impact included a substantial number of SLTs who had considered leaving the profession and downgrading their posts. What we need is a collective effort to enable a change across the profession. This would be facilitated by disability training, which does not feel as though it's just a tick box exercise, which actually feels like it means something, and management training ahead of people becoming managers, so people feel equipped to be managers, an ability to self-reflect on our own biases and to have open conversations. Next slide, please. And resources. So the RCSLT, in collaboration with the Disability Working Group, has created guidance on supporting SLTs with disabilities in the workplace, and this is available on their website. There are also 2 podcast episodes about the findings of the disability report available on the RCSLT website. It's also available on Spotify, Apple Music, and SoundCloud and other platforms. The RCSLT have also created guidance in collaboration with the Neurodiversity Working Group on supporting neurodivergent SLTs in the workplace, and this is available on the RCSLT website as well. There is also a book coming out in spring 2026. This has been written and contributed to by Jodie and Zainab, along with numerous other SLTs. And if you would like further information, they are happy to be contacted about this. Thank you so much for attending this webinar, and we hope you find it insightful.
Amy, thank you so much. And I have to congratulate all the speakers for keeping on time. There we are, dead on 5 o'clock, which is what we said we would do. So well timed. You can tell that we've been rehearsing this for a long time. Can I just first of all thank everybody who has presented today? It's been brilliant. Can I thank all of those people who attended the session as well? There are a number of really good questions being sent to us, and I think what I want to do is go back to those questions and ask some of the speakers to respond to some of those questions, because they are sort of directed to individual speakers and to the RCSLT. And we will make sure that we do that, because it's really important that we go back to the people who posted the questions. And finally, just from an RCSLT point of view, you will continue to have, and this is my word, you will continue to have the support that you need within this group to continue to do the work and develop the work that you have started and have made such a great progress on. And you will continue to have the support of the college to be able to do that moving forward. Today, as I said right at the beginning, is just the start of this journey as we move forward. And we've got a lot of things to address, a lot of things to do. But I just feel really strongly that if we do it together, we will get there much quicker and stronger if we work together on this. So please just come forward and help us to get this message out, and to get to change the way that we need to think about all of the issues that we've raised today in our discussion. So thanks to everybody for speaking. Thanks to all of the people who've joined us. And I hope that you will join the last session, which I think is starting at 5:05, for the closing session of today's conference. Thanks very much, and enjoy the rest of your evening.